Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Chum here, and as some of you guys may know, Duel Links just put out an update announcing there's going to be some new skill rebalancing happening, as well as some new cards being added to / removed from the forbidden / limited list. So this is actually really exciting because the meta has become quite stale for, I'd imagine, a lot of people, and these changes could potentially make things very different. And spoiler alert, I actually have already taken a look at these lists, and I definitely think they're going to change things up. So without further ado, let's start off with the forbidden / limited list implementation, because I feel that's a lot more important. And just so you guys know, this is expected to take place, or the changes are expected to happen on June 26th. So not too far away now, but regardless, let's jump into it. So the first change we have here is Massive Morph. Now this card, I honestly didn't think it was going to be that big of a problem. I faced it several times, but I've always found a way to get past it. However, I definitely feel as though if you're not playing tier 1, it can be a problem. Most tier 1 decks have a way to get monsters face down, back up again, or off the field and back on again, so you can kind of remove this effect. But as they mentioned in their little description, this card did slow down duels too often, and I feel like limiting it to make pacing faster is definitely a good idea, and I'm very glad about this. It was definitely just way too powerful. You Massive Morph something, and of course if you happen to run Amazon or Swordsman, you're going to put your opponent in the bin very quickly. So that's our only card being limited to 1. Then we have our semi-limited cards. First of all, we have Secret Pass to the Treasures. This is so interesting because this card didn't really see any play at all until the Silent Swordsman OTK deck came out. Of course, Silent Swordsman being level, whatever level it is, but having 1000 attack meant it could be affected by Secret Pass and attack directly, and then a bunch of other very powerful cards that work with Silent Swordsman, and some of them being specifically for him, makes him an incredible monster to OTK with. So I guess limiting this card to 2 is pretty decent. It means that you're going to be less likely to see this card in your hand and potentially not be able to run as many as you want because there are other cards that are limited to that exist in your deck. So super interesting. It's kind of weird to see this card in the list, but seeing as we only need to use 1 when we're farming, I think it's fine for this thing to be limited to 2. Then moving on to our next card, we have Assault Armor. This card was also used in the Silent Swordsman OTK. This card, as they mentioned, can cause duels to end quickly and thus will be semi-limited. Of course, that applies to both these previous 2 cards, and these 2 cards were part of the, I guess, OTK formula for Silent Swordsman. You could attack directly and twice. That's kind of crazy. Plus, with your Silent Sword Slash, you get to blatantly ignore every single card effect in the game that targets or affects your monster at all. Absolutely ridiculous. The combo was powerful. I made a video about it earlier. Not the best or most optimized version, but it was still a lot of fun to run around with. So if you guys have seen that, shout out to you. Anyway, again, this card is also limited to 2, which means if you are running Silent Swordsman OTK, you can only have 1 Secret Pass and 1 Assault, or 2 of one and none of the other. So very crazy. That they've done this, and they've really destroyed that Silent Swordsman OTK. I guess they really wanted you to play level 5 and level 7. Anyway, moving on to the next card, we have what I think is the most insane thing ever. Enemy Controller is on the ban list, / forbidden / limited list. This is absolutely insane. As I mentioned, this card has been staple for a long time, and they've decided to semi-limit it as it can be used in almost any deck and often cause duels to end immediately. Now, if I'm being honest with you, Enemy Controller, as great as a card as it is, I feel as though you don't really need to run 3. Having it limited to 2 is not too big of a deal for most people. And of course, having 3 is amazing because, the card, again, it's almost always useful. There's never a situation where you're like, oh no, I drew Enemy Controller, I wish I didn't have this in my deck. That doesn't happen. The card's amazing. But usually, if you have a well-rounded deck with good support, you're not going to be running 3 of the card. 2 is going to be more than enough. So I think that's fine. And another thing is the way that the forbidden / limited list works in this game, meaning of course you can only use any 2 cards. It doesn't mean I can have 2 Assault Armor and 2 Enemy Controller. It means I can only have 2 cards from the list, period. That means that other very powerful decks that already have some cards on this list can't combo their power with this very powerful Enemy Controller card. Of course, you guys know how powerful it can be, and it being limited this way means that the most powerful decks that are set with a few cards that are limited to won't be able to take advantage of this card. We'll have to kind of switch things up a little bit, and I think that is really key to giving us deck diversity. So I'm really glad this is here. I know it sounds stupid to be glad it's here, but I do like the addition of this on the list because, again, most people will be able to pass off with 2, and if you are playing the most meta thing that is on the ban list, then you're not going to be able to run with any enemy controllers, and it's life, sadly. Anyway, moving on to the next card, we have Cup of Ace. And this card apparently is being prevented, is being semi-limited to prevent duels from taking too long. Interesting. I mean, I guess, you do this, you flip a coin, you draw more, and the turn just kind of escalates. But I feel like this would more like speed up the deck. I mean, or speed up the duel because more cards are coming out of the deck. I don't know, but I can't complain about it. This card is kind of one of those kind of combo extenders. Like, you know, people would use Cup of Ace as the budget alternative to just get more cards in hand during their OTK, so that way they can, you know, get all the combo pieces they need. So I do like this being on the Forbidden Limited list. It definitely makes those dual standby OTK decks a lot less powerful, and of course, very specifically, Silent Swordsman very less powerful as well, if you were the person who ran this card. And then moving on to the next card, we have Heroes Shadow Scout. Interesting addition. We are preemptively adding this card to the semi-limited list to prevent certain decks from becoming too prevalent after the Forbidden and Limited list is updated. Very, very interesting. So they're probably adding some card to the game that will break with Hero Shadow Scout. Probably. Honestly, probably. And so they're trying to limit this card to 2. And honestly, what I'm seeing here is, like, you know, mill decks, stall decks, and, like, you know, hyper fast decks, they're getting dumpstered, which is so interesting to me, because I feel like that weirdly plays into my favorite way to play the game. I don't like OTKs. I mean, I use the decks because I want to be, you know, high tier, but sometimes they can be really boring. And I mean, I love Destiny Heroes. I've been playing Masked Heroes, but I don't have as much fun playing, you know, Masked Heroes with Destiny Heroes as I do playing Red Eyes, which is another one of my favorite archetypes, because Red Eyes is a slow kind of, it's an elongated duel. You know, you actually have to, you know, play it out and not just play out your first hand. So I do feel as though them kind of saying, hey, you know, let's limit the milling, let's limit the burn, like limit the super fast OTKs, and let's limit the burning or the stalling as well. Like, those sorts of things really play into my ideal Yu-Gi-Oh! And I don't think my ideal Yu-Gi-Oh! Is honestly the most ideal Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, I say it might not be, but it just seems like the, oh, this game sucks because it's too fast or too slow or people are scrubs, like that sort of mentality. But it is what it is. Interesting that it's on here. I can't say I'm complaining. Then next up, I went too far. Also, I should do this so you guys can see the card. My bad. We have Rose Lover. This card has been very prominent, and decks with this card have had a high win ratio. Therefore, they are semi-limiting this card, which of course they hope to do and, you know, encourage deck diversity, which I think this definitely will. Now, I love Rose Lover. I have been a fan of Rose Lover since it first got added to the game. I didn't pick it up because of Sylvans. You know, I played the basic Sunflower Princess deck with it. I played a Row Mages with it, and, you know, finally it got some traction with Sylvans, and it's sad to see it on here, but there is no deck that I play that needs 3. I think, although the fact that I can't run like 2 Rose Lover and Econ is really kind of problematic, and I really hate that. But if you're going to be running Rose Lover, there's definitely another alternative to something like Econ, so you'll be able to find that, I guarantee you. But I think one thing that is super key to know is that if you look over down here, Sylvan Marshall Leaf is also on this list, meaning that Sylvans are getting hit hard. They can only use 2 copies of either Rose Lover or Sylvan Marshall Leaf. So they can, again, like I said, 1 of each, 2 of one, and none of the other. That's it. Which I think takes out a huge chunk of the deck. That literally takes out 4 cards from their deck. Every Sylvan deck runs 3 Rose Lover and 3 Marshall Leaf, or the person's crazy. And it's absolutely ridiculous that they've gone and said, hey, you know what? 4 cards, throw it in the bin. That is, it's crazy, but I also love it. So thank you, because Sylvans were not fun and not interactive, and I'm glad this is happening. I just hate that Rose Lover had to take the hit. I really do. Anyway, moving on to our next card. We have Amazonas Onslaught, another very, very meta card. You guys, I'm sure, know what it does. It's, of course, the powerhouse behind Amazonas, and I'm not at all bothered by this. I actually quite like this. This card, of course, has a destruction effect, which I think is the reason that it is being limited, because realistically, limiting this to 2, saying, okay, you can only have 2 Amazonas Onslaught, is not a problem, because you can just search for it with your Amazonas Princess. So you're still going to be able to see this card very, very easily. I'm sure most people end up getting it into their hand because of a princess, so it's not that big of a deal. But limiting it to 2 means, again, you can't combo this card with Econ in your deck, so you kind of have to run some lower tier support cards, or, you know, staple cards. And of course, you won't be able to take advantage of its destruction effect more than twice per duel, unless of course you put in some engine in your deck to get trap cards out of your graveyard. Either way, moving on to the next card, I'm going to try and speed this up. We have Cyber Petite Angel. You guys know what this does. Summon it. You can add 1 Cyber Angel Monster or Cyber Machine Angel Ritual, blah blah blah, to your hand. And this card interestingly enough, I don't really understand that much why, because we only have access to 2. But I'm assuming it's because either we're going to get a third one in the future and they only want us to keep it at 2, they realize that 3 would be too powerful, or because, again, they just don't want us to combo this card off with, you know, something like Enemy Controller. They don't want us to be able to use Cyber Petite Angel at 2 as well as Enemy Controller at 3. And I think that's one of the things that they're trying to go with. They're trying to take, again, Enemy Controller and other powerful cards out of the hands of meta decks. And I think that's interesting. Very, very interesting. Then moving on to the next card, we have Pulse Mines. Of course, this card is useful in Gear Gears, and I definitely think this card needed it because Gear Gears are very, very powerful. And this card is a blanket, says, hey, everything goes to defense position, and if you summon anything else, it's still in defense position, very powerful, and it's not too hard to control a machine type monster if you're running a machine deck. So this card, which I think is absolutely incredible, I think it deserves to be here because of how powerful Gear Gears are. It sucks for other machine decks, like say you're running Cyber Dragons or you're running Ancient Gears. It definitely does suck that these Pulse Mines have been limited, but I think it needs to happen to make it so that it's a little bit more difficult for Gear Gears to pop their effects off, rather than saying, hey, I have 1 Pulse Mines, I get to destroy your entire field next turn. Kind of busted. Anyway, moving on to the next card, which I think is the final card in this list. Yes, we do. Oh, there's one more card that has been taken off the list. Anyway, the final card being added to the semi-limited list, or the limited list, but whatever, is Destiny Hero Celestial. And this card, I hate this so much. I do. I hate this. This is my favorite Destiny Hero monster. It's a beautiful card. I have 2 copies of it IRL, and it's a beautiful secret. I love this card. And it sucks to see it go, but I can see why. This card is so clutch. This card is amazing. With Masked Heroes, you can do a lot of things to get this card in your graveyard during your opponent's turn, and then you can draw for turn, set your card, and whatever else you have in your hand, and then banish this guy and one of the cards to draw 2, and drawing 2 is very powerful. So I can see why they're limiting this, and I'm not too bothered by it because it also means that I can change out my Destiny Hero deck and hopefully incorporate more engines. Like, I know there's a version of the Destiny Hero deck that isn't just Masked Heroes, but also runs some Vision Hero Vion, some polymerization and stuff like that. So I'm definitely keen to try this out and change it up. But I feel like Celestial is probably the least problematic card being hit right now. It doesn't make too much of a difference. It just means the consistency of this draw 2 is a lot less, which honestly isn't even going to be that much less, because once you start switching out 1 Celestial for Vion, summoning Vion can then put another Celestial in the graveyard. And if you really need to resolve 3 of these to win a duel, then I don't know what you're doing with your life. It's weird. I don't know. Anyway, moving on to the one card being taken off the list, we have a Red Eye Spirit. And I love this. I'm a Red Eyes fan. It's really good to see Red Eye Spirit being taken off the list and having, you know, 3 copies of this card available. And that's amazing. I'm keen to make my Red Eyes deck once more and run it with 3 of this card and see how well it can do. I might even do that in a ranked duel video sometime soon. But of course, I have to wait till June 26th because that's when the changes happen. Either way, that's it for the Forbidden Limited list. Overall, like I said, I think a lot of this stuff was deserved. Some of it's super interesting. Cyber Petite Angel kind of bamboozled me. I feel like Celestial is not very limiting at all. We have Sylvan, Martial Leaf, and Rose Lover. Very, very, very big hits to the Sylvan deck. Hero Shadow Scout, interestingly, stopping mills. We have some cards that preventing OTKs, and Enemy Controller, the best staple card in the game in my opinion, has now been limited or semi-limited, so that way you can't run this powerful card with decks that use other semi-limited cards, and I think that is wonderful. Either way, let's jump out of here and let's jump into the skill rebalancing, because a lot of crazy things are happening. So let's just jump down to exactly what's being changed. So basically, Dragonic Fusion has been changed so that way the effect is a lot more usable. They were like, hey, you know what? Just putting the card in your deck, just putting Dragon's Mirror in your deck is kind of not enough. So what the skill does at the beginning, you add Dragon's Mirror and 5-headed Dragon to your deck / at your deck respectively. And then this skill can be used when your life points decrease by 1800. Instead of conducting a normal draw, add a Dragon's Mirror or draw a Dragon's Mirror from your deck. So this is a lot better. It means not only is the card in there, but you have a way to draw it. And I definitely think I want to try and run this, because previously I thought it was lame. I was like, it doesn't even matter. It's just, you know, Dragon's Mirror. But now that we can actually search it, that's incredible. Then we have Sealed Tombs, which I think is a very powerful skill. And honestly, if it wasn't for the ban list, I think this skill would shut down Sylvans. Because are you ready for this? Until the end of your opponent's next turn, neither player can banish cards from the graveyard or special summon monsters from the graveyard. What do Sylvans do if not that? Like, they can still do stuff with, you know, Komushumo and Martial Leaf, but in terms of using Rose Lover to summon, they can't do that. In terms of using Carrot Boy to get Rose Lover in the graveyard, they can't do that. And then you probably win next turn. Ridiculous. I love it. Also, It doesn't say that you have to use the skill at the start of your turn, which means you can special summon monsters during your turn. Before you hit battle phase, activate the skill. Of course, if you don't intend to special summon in the battle phase, and then, or specifically from the graveyard, and then you go in. And then your opponent can't do that, but it goes back to you and you can do it again. Wonderful. And then we have Harpy's Last Will. Can be used by banishing 5 Harpy cards from your graveyard. Add 1 Harpy Feather Duster to your hand from outside your deck. I'm not sure what they changed with this. Let me just have a quick look. What did they say about this? We have the skill easy to use. Okay, that's cool. And they've limited the number of users to 1. Is that what I just read? Yeah, it's going to be used once per turn. That's interesting. That's fair. I like it. I don't know if the skill is going to see any more play. I mean, maybe if they updated Harpy's Hunted Ground as a skill, maybe we could have seen some play of Harpies once again. I don't know. Regardless, moving on, we have Posthumous Army. Can be used each time your life points increase by 1,000. All monsters on the field and monsters in both graveyards become zombie type until the end of your opponent's next turn. Now, what did they change for this? They've made the skill easy to use so that it can be taken advantage of in zombie type decks. And I think this skill is actually going to make Red Eye Zombie Dragon a lot better. All monsters on the field and graveyards become zombies, so Zombie Dragon can attack over things and then steal them because of its effect. Very powerful. Not to mention, Red Eye Spirit is now 3, so I think Zombie Dragon could be making a comeback, and I'm kind of riled by that. And then, moving on to the next card, we have Duel Standby. This thing has been destroyed. I don't think I mentioned it before. Duel Standby has been destroyed, and it's not the only one of the main skills that got destroyed. Seriously. Each player's starting hand increases by 1 card. That's normal. This is not normal. You cannot activate spells or trap cards or monster effects on your first turn. That is insane. Traditionally, when you use a Duel Standby deck, if it's not a burn deck, which of course doesn't work anymore because you have to wait till your next turn, if it was something like Dark World or something like Silent Swordsman, you have to, or you'd want to go second. Now you can't do that. If you go second, your opponent gets 2 turns before you can activate cards. So you want to go first now, but then you can't activate your cards. All you can do to protect yourself is really set a monster or set the protected backward that you for some reason have or now have to run, and then wait till turn 3 to play cards. That is crazy. Like, Duel Standby is designed to speed up the duel so you have more cards in hand, you have greater access to your combo pieces, and they've just said, sure, you can get 1 more card, but you can't play the game for a turn, and that is kind of crazy. I don't think Duel Standby is going to be used very often anymore because of this. Like, literally wait a turn, that's a hard thing to happen. Anyway, moving on, you guys have been able to see it for the whole time. We have Restart. Again, this card, or this skill, got very heavily hit. Can be used only once after starting hands are dealt. Reveal and redraw your starting hand. Of course, they recently nerfed this skill by saying, hey, you have to show your hand and then shuffle it back in. But that didn't stop anyone, so they've gone and said, hey, you know what, let's make it even worse. Your first draw will be skipped if you use this skill. So, if you draw a bad hand and you choose, hey, I'm going to change it, you're not going to get to draw on your first turn or the first time you get to draw. And I'm certain that if you draw the hand and then you like it, you still get your draw. I'm 90% certain about that. But still, very, very, very interesting stuff. I think this is going to change the way I use this skill if I even intend to use it, because all it's going to do is stop you from like super insane bricks. Like if I draw 5 spell cards or 4 spell cards because I'm not using Duel Standby, then I'm going to restart. But if I end up drawing something even mildly useful, I'll play it because I'd rather have that 5th card than have the chance to have a better set of 4 cards. So really interesting. It can help stop you from bricking, but I think it's also going to be really less useful for decks that have a high chance to brick. Because sometimes people just run this so that they're very, very bricky, but also very powerful deck is a lot less likely to brick. And I think that's the reason that they've added this in the way, or they've changed this in the way that they have. And then moving on to balance, your starting hand will reflect the card balance of your deck. As we know, that's how it's always been. But here's the new change. This skill will not activate unless you have at least 6 of each type of card. So you must have 6 monsters, 6 spells, and 6 traps. And that there, kids, adds up to 18 cards. Meaning you get 2 other cards to kind of splash around with and do that, which is crazy. To use this skill with a, what would you call it? With a 20 card deck means that you can only have 8 monsters. That's a very low count of monsters. It's a very high count of spells and traps. I'm not sure I like this at all. I don't think balance is going to be playable at all. Because realistically, the whole point is that, your starting hand reflects the balance of your deck. I get that. And if your deck is balanced in such a way, then you can make it super likely for you to get certain cards in your hand. But if your deck is literally balanced, you know, let's say 7-6, of course you're likely to get a hand that reflects the balance of your deck. That's how RNG works. So it's super interesting that they've made this change. I think they've really ruined the skill, because very few decks in this metagame can actually conform their build to this new balance, and I'm not okay with it. I really am not okay with it. I think it's absolutely not okay. I don't know how many times I could say that, but yeah, I don't think balance is going to be playable at all. I never even thought balance was a problem. I thought balance was a really passive skill that said, hey, you know, I want to make sure that I have some usable cards in my hand, and the fact that it doesn't work at all if you don't build your deck the certain way makes it super unusable. Unless, of course, you're running a bigger deck, then, you know, by all means, you do you. Either way, we have another skill change, this time a very prominent skill once again, Grit. Previously, it was kind of random, and it would randomly trigger that if you were to go to 0 life points, instead you stay on 1. This time, they've changed it up, so now if you had 4,000 or more life points at the start of your last turn, your life points will not fall below 1 for one time only. So previously, it would prevent you from being destroyed that entire turn. So let's say I had 2 monsters on the field, I attack with one, they went down to 1 life point because of Grit. If I attack with the other, they wouldn't die. However, now, if I do have 2 attacks on board, one gets them down to 0, which of course is saved by Grit. The second one will kill them, which is good. I really love that. It makes Grit a little less useful because, honestly, in my time in the WCS qualifiers, I was seeing way too much Grit, and honestly, it hit me like 90% of the time, and I felt really bad about it. But yeah, now it's predictable, and you can kind of build your forces. You can play around it now. Before, you had to predict it, or, you know, kind of just hope and pray it wouldn't happen. Now you can play around it. They made versing Grit something tactical. I like that. I really do. You just have to get one more set of damage on board rather than, you know, the traditional go to 4,000. And that's only if the opponent has 4,000 or more life points at the start of your turn. If they have less than that, if you've already done some damage, Grit's gone. So very interesting. And of course, they've also mentioned that the skill can only be activated once per duel. Then moving on, we have a few other things that haven't changed too much. Ojamago is still here, Destiny Draw is still here, and Extra Extra is still here. However, they've changed a few things. Ojamago can now only be used once per duel. Same thing with Destiny Draw, which I think is a really downer for me. I really love Destiny Draw. I haven't used it in a long time, but I still love the skill. It can only be used once per duel. And then finally, Extra Extra. It doesn't say it can only be used once per duel. I was expecting that to be the case, but I think what it's saying is that if you draw a card, you get to draw 2 of it instead. I think. So it says, can be used during life points increased by 2,000. During your draw phase, add to your hand 1 copy of the card you drew as your normal draw. So, I don't know if that card comes from outside the deck. If it does still come from outside the deck, then I'm really confused. But I think they've made it so that way, if you, let's say I have 2 Celestials in my deck and I draw Celestial, I'll get the other one. But if I only have 1 left, I don't think I'll get a bonus card. I think that's what this means. I'm not too sure. Either way, the skills and everything have definitely really changed, and I'm still racking my brain as to what skills I'm going to run with what decks, because right now, the main skills have been binned. You know, Grit, I mean, I never really used it. Balance, man, Balance has been shut down. Dual Standby doesn't even work anymore. Restart now has a huge penalty if you end up actually using the skill, so you definitely don't want to be running decks that have a high chance to brick. Yeah, it's just crazy. I feel like Post-Humus Army, as well as Red Eye Zombie Dragon, could be the new meta, because they're the only decks that were anywhere near meta that have actually gotten a buff from this ban list. So I'm looking forward to that. It's definitely something really crazy. And yeah, this video has been going on for a long time. There's been a half-hour video talking about the new changes to Duel Links, so I'm not sure if I'm going to cut anything out or what's going to happen. But regardless, that is going to be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you think about the changes. I definitely have some very strong opinions, and I'm sure a lot of people will have some very strong opinions about the changes that have come to the game, or that will be coming to the game. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but the expected date for skill rebalancing, as you guys can see on screen, is June 18th. So hopefully we'll have some more information about that, and hopefully once we get these new skills at that date, we won't be too bothered by it, or maybe we'll be really happy about it. Who knows what happens. Regardless, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button once again. If you guys want to see more Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links related content, including online PvP duels, you know, league videos, unboxings, as well as news videos for stuff like these crazy new balancing that's happening to PvP and just the whole game in general, make sure you hit that subscribe button also, because there'll be more videos like this coming very soon. Regardless, once again, I want to thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day.